Friends, colleagues, and listeners, here we are, another podcast and another guest covering a subject matter which is, I shouldn't say relatively new to my understanding, but definitely relatively new to my interest level. And it's something that, I think a lot of us, especially in our industry, we take for granted, and perhaps we shouldn't. So the guest I'm talking about is Graig Marshall, who's head of commercial for ASI Solutions. And we're talking about asphalt, and whether it's runways, whether it's racetracks, whether it's roads, but basically it's all to do with asphalt and the construction side of those very important floors or surfaces that we take for granted. So Graig, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Now, Graig, can I ask you, firstly, how did you get into this side of the industry?
Well, I suppose I'm a gamekeeper turned poacher. Sorry. I was initially in the supply manufacturer side, working for a large quarrying company producing asphalt. Now I'm on the other side, where I want the asphalt to last a lot longer and clients to get more value from it.
Very good, very good. And one of the things that I noticed is your background. You've been involved on the technical side and the commercial. And I love to ask this question of anybody that's been on both the practical and the, shall we say, the softer, more friendly side of the business. How different have you found it from the technical side to the commercial side?
Well, I don't think anyone should be in commercial without being in technical, first of all. How could I extol the virtues of value and also sell to people in a credible way if I have little or no understanding of the products that I'm discussing with them? So my view is the technical grounding. I think you said softer for commercial. Yes, it's very angular in respect of black and white in technical, but it does put you in a good position to explain to clients and contractors alike what is actually best for their assets.
Exactly. And I 100% agree with you. I've dealt with so many people over the almost 40 years I've been in this industry, and you get so many people who turn up on the commercial side, and when you ask them some technical issues or you ask them for a little bit of what I would call basic understanding, it's not there.
No,
and they're so focused on the revenue side, they forget the other elements that have to be considered when you're making such a decision.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And, particularly, well, in both industries, I don't want to sell to people just once and walk away. I want continuity of sales. I want repeat business. I want to be a credible source of information that those people will contact and ask for my view, even if it's not just about asphalt preservation, anything related to construction that I may be able to support them with. And that's part of the brand of the business.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Now, for most people, and like I said at the beginning, is I think an awful lot of us, and even Joe Public or Jill Public, in normal life, you take for granted that when you go out in a car, that the roads are going to be great condition or they're going to be in good shape, etc. Or if you're on a racetrack, people don't appreciate what the racetrack involves for the drivers, for the cars, for the performance, etc. And then obviously when you're taking off and landing on a runway, and you consider the amount of weight that lands, the impact of heat, of frost, of rain, how the water drains off, all those things most people wouldn't think of.
No, I think you're absolutely right. They think asphalt is just put down and that's it. It lasts. And the reality is, as you rightly mentioned, the climatic conditions, the safety aspects or features of that surface course that are required. We can't just leave those things and expect them to remain the same, throughout time. We've just been through COVID, where revenues at airports, I would imagine, have been at an all-time low. No flights, no travel, no nothing. What people seem to forget is that asphalt is probably in the worst conditions it can be in respect to the climate. There's no shade, there's no protection. And all that time, while it's sat there with no planes on, it's been getting older. It's been getting harder. It's losing its cohesivity and its flexibility. That will undoubtedly lead to problems as we start to open the world back up again.
Exactly. Now something. I mean, just taking things on a little bit of a tangent here, but coming back from COVID, so everybody was talking about build back better or bring back better, and what people should be doing differently. But one of the things that people should be doing is what they never did. They never looked at risk and worst case scenarios, and also preventive measures or contingency or continuity issues. And just because of everything that's happened, like you said, the maintenance of one of the most important assets, especially on an airport, has to be done and maintained. So what goes into it now is so important. But you've also got, and I hope you don't mind me using the term, but you've also got a solution or a product that enhances what's already there without necessarily having to completely relay it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And, a fundamental of keeping assets, planes, anything that you buy and use regularly, a fundamental of keeping it in good condition is regular maintenance. That doesn't mean react when it's broke, because once it's broke, it's going to cost you a lot of money and you're going to have a lot of problems. So the Rhinophalt solution is used in the main and the best way in respect of ongoing preventative maintenance. It's keeping that asset in a good condition for a lot longer, and that provides surety and safety for the users.
Yeah, no, very good. And it also preserves, protects, and extends the life of the existing asphalt infrastructure. And like within the, like I said, what it does on the can, it also, it's proven to withstand all extreme weather conditions. Now, with those obvious benefits, how receptive are airports to you at the moment?
We get some pockets of excellence. So I could refer to Iceland, where we've done 1 million square meters over, say, the last 10 years at both the regional and the international Keflavik airport. Australia is incredibly receptive to it, and so is the defence sector. I think the commercial airports, particularly in the UK, if I'm honest with you, do struggle a little bit with the concept, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And that's how we're hoping to broach out further if we can.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there, because I think equally, like discussions that I've had that have come across, especially like with new airports or extensions to airports, it doesn't get the profile that it deserves. Neither do the roads, neither do the pavement heights, and in some cases they're not even involved in the consideration. And then when you get the co-buses or the buses and they drop down, they hit the curb, and then you get damages to buses, damages to curbs, etc. And you think to yourself, why on earth not include all of the stakeholders or the people? And no pun intended, but from the ground up.
Yeah, an airport without a runway is a field.
Yeah,
that's the reality. So the runway is the single most important part of a runway, yet it generally isn't looked upon as that in terms of investment, maintenance, your proactive maintenance, keeping it where it should be, managing decline or retarding decline, making it decline a lot slower. It's a massive investment when you resurface a runway, massive. Yep. And there's an awful lot of delays and problems, holes in the runway that you're panicking because it hasn't been filled up because the asphalt plant may have broken down. This is a way to avoid this and costly emergency maintenance.
Rhinophalt. No, I agree.
Rhinophalt will make a significant.
Yeah, go on. Sorry,
Rhinophalt will make a significant difference.
Okay.
In the long-term planning.
Yeah. Now, good. Now, just focusing on the Rhinophalt concept as such. Now, it contains a natural asphalt, gilsonite.
That's correct. Naturally aged.
Yeah.
And as a consequence,
mineral antioxidant.
yes, mineral antioxidant, which is very high in nitrates and consequently provides exceptional preservative properties in respect of oxidization of the existing material. And it's oxidization that causes the bituminous part of the asphalt pavement to age.
And I think most people are pretty aware of, the knock on the door and saying, can I tarmac your drive, sir? And the bitumen for the roof and everything else and around the windows and everything. So I think people are aware of the terms, but you guys take it to a completely different level.
Yeah, and I think you have to. You really do, Chris. There's a lot of chemistry and engineering behind simple cracks appearing in a runway or any asphalt surface. You need to understand the mechanics of how that occurs in order to prevent it occurring. Nothing lasts forever, but it'll last an awful lot longer when you're looking after it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I tell my wife as well.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. No, but it's I said at the beginning, it's a subject matter. They say nothing's interesting if you're not interested. And I was looking at some of the literature, and I was also looking at some of the involvement I've had before. And what you said there about if there's no runway, it's a field. And I can tell you, in all my travels, I've landed on a few fields, I think, because of the way
sure
but with what you're doing, I mean, that also makes a difference, doesn't it, to the aircraft as well, to the tires, the way airports look after it when the amount of rubber comes off the tires on every single landing, and how that has to be cleaned off. It has a big impact on the tarmac. Yeah,
when you're removing rubber from an asphalt surface course, you're actually removing some of what holds it together. If you take something out, Chris, you should always ensure you put something back. Otherwise, you're effectively losing something in the long run. And that's what Rhinophalt does. When it's applied, when there's micro cracks within the surface course, there's areas for ingress of water, possibly antifreeze, icing fluid, all of those things, it stops it. And if it stops it right at the surface, then you're preventing damage further down in that surface course layer.
Yeah, no, and that for those that understand the difference, that's something that needs to be taken into consideration when the evaluation or the tender is being done, and not just from a procurement perspective with final price.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of final price and value, Chris, when you compare an application of Rhinophalt to resurfacing, look, you're looking at less than 10% of the cost to do it. You're looking at outputs that, depending on the working window, you can apply to 30 to upwards of 60,000 square in one shift. Now, some runways will be about 180,000 square. If you're doing that in weeks and months of nighttime working, this is guys turning with a tanker, spraying it. It looks brand new once it's done. The friction levels in terms of safety and everything are held at the correct values, and it's good to go within a few hours. A wise man once said to me, who was very high up in airports, he said, the top of the asphalt protects the bottom of the asphalt, but what protects the top? And I was like, well, ding, ding, here, perfect, Rhinophalt. Because at the end of the day, it stops the climate and everything else having as bigger impact on the surface. You can't use Rhinophalt without asphalt. You need that base. but it will make the asphalt last a lot longer, potentially double the life, you know, for 20 to 25% of the cost. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. When you say it like that, 100%. And there's also carbon footprint benefits as well.
Yeah, significant. You know, a lot of airports and in the press, they're talking about, you know, digitally and how we get passengers to airports and reducing our carbon footprint. Rhinophalt is 94% less carbon than asphalt. You know, that's not a long way short of being nothing, to be fair.
Yeah.
You know, it's fast, it's carbon reduction in terms of the environment. You're not quarrying aggregate. Just a quick figure for you. A lot of asphalt that can be used on runways and roads alike is 10 mil SMA. Okay, a lot of the products that are used on runways are hybrids of that very product. If you're, you know, to make 1 million tons of 10 mil SMA, you have to quarry 4 million tons of aggregate.
Yes.
That can't be right for the environment. It just cannot be.
Yeah.
You know? And you avoid all of this by using Rhinophalt.
But it's amazing. There's so many facts and points of interest. And it reminds me of old Attenborough, you know, when he's talking about the planet and all the different, the way he presents it and the way he puts it across, everybody from every background is almost interested, which is why he's so successful at what he's done. And also the awareness has gone up. But it's the same with nearly every single organization or product or service. If you get the right level of communication and awareness and detail, it's such an interesting element.
It is, you know, and the skill is to be able to put it into terms where people do actually understand it. You know, preservation is a technique that is accepted in practically every sector on the planet, but we still seem to struggle with it on asphalt. You know, and it's proved itself beyond, you know, any doubters, but it's still a bit of a challenge out there. And if we can get the word out that, look, it's quite simple, it's quick, it's sustainable, provides all the characteristics you need, continues to them, you know, and in terms of value for money, it really is a no-brainer. If we can get that word out, get people just to acknowledge there's a different way to look at things, then we're winning the battle and we're on the right course.
No, 100%. And then that comes into one of your statements, which is that Rhinophalt is an investment and not a cost, which is so important.
And importantly, Chris, it's the return on that investment for the people who are financing it. And, you know, if it's 10% of the cost, the return's far greater.
No, 100% agree. And then some of the things that, you know, in your literature and your reference, you talk about the ease of implementation. And something I said earlier, I was doing a project on an airport, and they had to repair and redo some of the tarmacking. And as a result of it, the curb heights were changed, and there was also issues with the co-buses, and when they dropped down, if they weren't far away enough, they were hitting the curbs. And what you do as well is you got existing curb heights can be maintained. So it's
absolutely, and iron work and drainage works. You know, the product works from the inside out. That's why it's so successful at what it does. So when we spray it on, you'll hear it percolating into the receiving surface course. So your external characteristics of noise, movement of water through texture, etc., they're all kept as you planned them initially when you installed that runway.
Okay, no, that's good. And also, it's easy to apply even when there's been some repair work or you know, various utility activity where it has to be then relayed, and then you can cover it accordingly.
Absolutely. I think it's an absolute benefit to those types of examples, Chris, because when any work is done or when any patches are replaced, what you can have significant problems with is warm material interfacing to cold, hard, old material at the joint. Whereas because Rhinophalt penetrates, what it does is you would just spray over that patch and the Rhinophalt will penetrate through any voidage at that interface and then restrict any further water ingress, causing problems in the future.
And again, people don't realise with water ingress, and then if there's freezing or even excessive heat, it has such a damaging impact.
Massive, absolutely massive. Water is the number one enemy of asphalt. Water and UV light. Well, I'm sure if there wasn't planes landing, everyone would be sunbathing on runways. There's no shade, there's no shadow, there's no nothing. And it sits there day and night, taking all.
Right.
Yeah. So what we're saying is put something back to protect it, seal it and protect it, because you need to get it to last as long as you possibly can.
Yeah, brilliant. What's been the most difficult market you've ever had to deal with?
I do think it's, it is airfields, to be fair. They're very challenging because they've always done it one way. That's always worked. But the reality is when we see the finance aspects of a lot of places now and operators, one way cannot always be the right way. The world's moving on. People don't have the same finances. You've got to have a different way of thinking. You've got to start with the end in mind. If you've got a surface course in place and it's in good condition, then don't be waiting for it to fail. React, respond. The safety characteristics are there. This product is approved by defence people and what have you, defence infrastructure is used on their runways because all of the characteristics are retained. All you're doing is getting a lot more life for a lot less buck, Chris.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and you've just touched on something there. Like you started, leaning towards standards and certification. Now everybody knows the old ISO and now in aviation looking at IOSA, and ISAGO, etc. But you mentioned in your literature about the HAPAS certification.
That's right. Yeah, BBA HAPAS. We've had it since 2007 or 2009. And that basically is independent assessment that the product does exactly what we claim it does. And we can also demonstrate that, it's approved by defence infrastructure for use on their infrastructure and assets. We have no problem demonstrating the validity of our solution.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And I think that, the biggest point, like you said there, and especially in the aviation industry, it is a legacy industry and sometimes change is hard to come by and sometimes change is hard to initiate and make sure it's either pushed through, pulled through or convinced. Absolutely. So the time is right to look at all these different areas. And I definitely, there's something I've got to share with you. I come from Irish stock, so all my family are Irish. And I can remember both my grandfather and my granddad, they always used to sing, I think it's McAdam's Fusiliers, is it? Or McAlpine's Fusiliers.
Okay.
Have you heard that one?
No, but I'm happy to listen to you giving me a...
I believe you, if I was to sing that, you wouldn't be listening for very long. If you look it up when you've got a bit of time, McAlpine's Fusiliers. Basically, it's about all the Irish coming over and working on the roads. It's a good old song, but so I remember you now whenever I listen to it. But Craig, listen, we're coming to the end of the time now, and again, you've endorsed how interesting something can be that people don't realise or don't never came across. And I think your engagement and your passion, it comes across in bundles, my friend. And the fact that you would be selling your product after working with it for so long on the technical side and also the benefits and the way it works, I would imagine that's very, very well received because it comes across very credible.
I do, Chris. First of all, thank you very much for your time. I would like to say, you know, if I can just finish with this, it does what it says on the tin, and ASI as a business, when working with airports through contractors, will be there from pre-inspection to ensure your asset is suitable to receive Rhinophalt. We will support the application to ensure it's delivered correctly, and we'll be there at the end to demonstrate it did what we said it would do.
Yeah, and that's the care. That's the care element. That is the one thing that I think every organisation, product and service needs to take into account as we come out of, you know, one of the most unprecedented and terrible times across global industries. It's all about care now, and if people care, it makes a huge difference. And you definitely come across, Craig, as a man who cares. So fair play to you.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, my friend, and good luck with everything. Thank you very much for coming on.